Hey there, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rockstar Manifestors podcast. The question that I am kicking off with this week is: are you settling for your current circumstances because you don't want to rock the boat, or because you think it'll be too hard to change your current circumstances? That is what I'm going to be talking about today. So join on in and listen up. I guess let's have a conversation about that, so to speak. So, welcome to this episode, which happens to be week 2 of the Making Happiness a Habit series, which I started last week. And this is to go along with Happiness Happens Month, which is August. So, these are being recorded in real time in August of 2023, but they are applicable at any time at all. So whenever you happen to be listening to this podcast episode, know that the information is relevant. It's just timely that August, since August is Happiness Happens Month, I thought this would be a great set of episodes to share with you guys. And this series is 4 episodes long, and it is actually also an email series, like an automated email series that you can get, where I will share, to keep all the exercises and videos that I reference in the episodes and link in the show notes. You can get them all emailed to you, and the link will be somewhere at the end of the show notes or description, and I'll get to that a little bit more at the end. So last week's episode, which was the first of this series, was about not letting the shoulds guide your life. I shared an exercise that you can listen to and do to help you identify if or where the shoulds have been guiding your life and how to move forward differently. And so today I am going to be sharing with you, when I called it when I initially wrote this series several years ago, I called it like the lowest point in my life. And that may be true, but I was just feeling more down about it. I guess I don't know. That's one of those weird things. Like, it was definitely a low point that led to significant changes. So I don't know. We'll just call it a very low point in life. Maybe it is still the lowest. I'm just not in that space anymore. So I don't feel like that of it. I just see it as now it was an amazing set of circumstances that led to making changes in my life that I love, and that I continue to use those lessons to keep from going back to that kind of space and to continue to make changes moving forward. So again, the focus is, or the question is, are you settling for your current set of circumstances because you don't want to rock the boat, or you think it'll be too hard to make changes, even though your current circumstances are less than desirable? So if that is true, are you ready to start making changes or learn how to start making changes and living life in alignment with your desires based on the decisions you make and the actions that you take? So before I share that lowest point, like I talked about, I want to first start off this episode, or this second episode, with a practice. It's a super quick practice or exercise, whatever you choose to call it, or sounds better to you, that I learned quite a while back, several years ago. And this can be done anytime, anywhere, when you're by yourself, when you're in public. It's nothing that's going to draw attention to you in any way. And it is super, super effective. And it's a good one when you're feeling drained energetically, maybe depleted, indecisive, or you just want to recenter or recharge and maybe even refocus. So it's a great exercise to do in those moments where you're feeling, or you notice you are feeling those ways. It's also a great exercise to do on a regular basis to maybe help prevent you getting to those, to those depleted and undecisive areas. We'll all have them. We'll all still have those times and those moments, but maybe we won't let it get, so we're really run down or really exhausted. It's just something to definitely keep in your toolbox and see what works best for you. Because like I said, you don't need a thing to do it, and you can do it anytime and anywhere. And what the practice or the exercise is, and you may have heard it called different things. This is not something that I came up with by any means. It's simply calling your energy back. Because when you think about it, everything is energy. We're energy. The people we interact with are energy. The things we interact with are energy. We use energy with whatever we're focusing on or whatever we're doing. And so everything is connected energetically. And a great quote to kind of emphasize this from Tony Robbins describes it well. It says, "Where focus goes, energy flows." So think about that. How many people, things, activities, events, etc., do you focus on throughout the day? Whether it's for a split second, for several minutes, for several hours. So wherever you're focusing on, whether you're looking at it, interacting with it, thinking about it, anything that you're focused on at any given moment, you are sending energy to that thing or that person. So it's this exchange, if you will, of energy. Now visualize here's the exercise, visualizing your energy of yourself, like the energy that you have and that you possess and that belongs to you as a battery, like a phone battery, the little icon that you see when it's going down. It doesn't necessarily have to be your phone, but that's what comes to mind right off the bat for me. That little energy icon, the battery icon, that shows how full and how charged the battery is. And imagine it every time that you do focus on something, like I just talked about, people, events, thoughts, things. Every time you focus on something else, it drains your battery just a little bit. Sometimes it might not be immediately noticeable, but every exchange or everything that you focus on drains your battery just a little bit. Let me see where I am here on my notes. Okay. Like the one on your cell phone. And I wrote down, and imagine it going down every time you focus on something new. So recharging that energetic battery, your personal energetic battery, can be done in as little as 30 seconds. I suppose less if you only have time for, like a real quick, but it can be done in 30 seconds. And it's as simple as intentionally, because this is the key, intentionally calling your energy back from wherever it happens to be. You don't need to visualize or remember or even know all of the things that you have focused on or touched or interacted with to call your energy back. You don't need to remember that, because that's just using up more energy trying to remember those things, right? And kind of think back and go through it. It really doesn't matter. And I did a video about this, like showing you and how to walk through it several years ago. That video I will be linking in the show notes or captions wherever you are watching or listening to this episode. And like I said earlier, you can get the email series where it's all contained, and you can save it or print it out, whatever the case is. So all you do is you sit, and you can close your eyes if you want, but if you're standing like in a grocery line or, somewhere where keeping your eyes open is more beneficial, that's absolutely okay. But like if you get in your car, you can take 30 seconds to do this before you go anywhere, or maybe when you get somewhere, when you've driven somewhere and you've parked, and take 30 seconds at the end of your day, whatever the case is. There could be there's any number of examples, like on the bus, on the subway, while you're walking, eyes closed, eyes open. Those things don't matter. It's just the doing. So you, on purpose, take a deep breath in. You can count, like 3 seconds or to 3 if you choose, but the very basic exercise is to take an intentional deep breath in. And as you're doing that, imagine or say to yourself or to your energy that you are calling all your energy back. And think as you are taking that deep breath in, that it is returning to you from wherever it happens to be. It is not negatively affecting anyone else or anything along those lines. You are simply just calling your energy back. And then with the exhales, just let go of the tension, the tiredness, the frustration, or just use it if you're not, if you are doing this on a more consistent basis, or you're not necessarily feeling like drained or tired, etc. You're just kind of doing this as a cleansing exercise. Just think of the exhales as just cleansing things out, clearing out space, and also returning energy that you have gotten from other people, not on purpose. There you are expending energy every time you focus on something. So you are also the recipient of energy from other people that focus on you, speak to you, see you, all those things. So the inhales are you calling your energy back. You can say it, you can imagine it, you can just picture it, this little visualization of your battery icon getting fuller and fuller and stronger and stronger. And then as you exhale, to send the energy back or simply clear out space. And do that 3 times, 5 times, whatever it is. And imagine your battery being recharged. And when you're done, you do feel differently. If you're doing this when you're tired, you might not feel ready to go, run a marathon or something along those lines, because it's more your energetic tiredness, that depleted energy battery feeling. But you will feel possibly more awake, more centered, calmer, maybe a little bit more energized, but your energetic battery is full. So like I said, since you're calling your energy back, you could maybe make this a regular practice in the evenings, once a week, twice a week, whatever. Try this. And like I mentioned earlier, keep it in your toolbox and play with it just randomly. But when you are feeling those ways, remember that this is in your toolbox and you can do it at any time at all. And like I said, the video is a little bit longer than that, just maybe a little bit, and it goes into a bit more detail. So you can click on the link somewhere around this video or audio that you're listening to and go check out that video to see the whole thing. So on to the story of my lowest point. We'll just go with that because that's what I wrote. That was how I wrote this series originally. And this lowest point moment, it was the summer. So think back, or I'm telling it from the space of, it was the summer of 2013. And I was 41 years old at that point. And at that point in my life, so if I'm like the timeline that we talked about last week, that timeline looking backwards. So in my timeline, when I was at the 41-year-old mark, I had one failed marriage, if you will, one failed marriage, 2 failed relationships, like significant relationships with boyfriends that I had lived with. And was living with my then boyfriend in, you guessed it, an unhappy relationship. What a shocker, right? At that time. So that was the pattern that I was repeating then. And so I was in this relationship living with my then boyfriend. And I would say, honestly, looking back, at that point, when I had written this and when I was experiencing, it was safe to say that it was the most negative and unhealthy of my relationships. It's not about going into details about that because that's not what's important, but to give you a sense, think of like the controlling boyfriend looking for you, or looking to like counting of time, like where were you? How long did it take? Who was there? Emotionally manipulative behavior. I didn't really know the term back then, but I would say gaslighting is probably accurate to incorporate there. But like I said, I didn't know that terminology or that concept at the time. And then I wrote here, I did reference it, I wrote down in my notes, being asked not so nicely to account for my time and whereabouts. So that's the type of energy, circumstances, if you will. And so I had a job back then that I loved. I loved the job and the work that I was doing. I was working as a one-on-one teacher's aide with elementary school age children. And it was also it's also referred to as a paraprofessional. So if you're familiar with that term in school districts. So I was working with the elementary school age kids, and but the job itself did not pay enough for me to live on my own, like to cover my expenses and, all those things on my own, nor did it have the potential to. So, I mean, I had been there a significant number of years, and for the pay rate where I was living, et cetera, that, it didn't have the potential to. So I was living in Illinois at the time, and all of my immediate family was in California. Different parts of California then, but all of my immediate family was there. I had no family living around me. I had moved out there, many years before. I lived in Illinois for about 12 years altogether. So that's kind of just, if you're kind of just getting a sense of the circumstances I'm talking about. And I know now, like looking back, I know that I had created that particular set of circumstances by making decisions, like I talked about in last week's episode, by making decisions that were either trying to follow others or society's expectations, which had never really been what I wanted, right? There was this cycle of like trying to fit into these expectations or this box or this pattern or whatever, and then rebelling, but not really in a healthy or positive sense, and then trying to, make myself fit back or get back on track, if you will, right? So I was making these decisions to rebel against those expectations, but that rebellious action, or that was also actually not in alignment, or at least not in a healthy alignment with what I wanted. It wasn't a healthy way to try and achieve what I wanted. And that's because, if being honest with myself, I didn't really know what it was that I wanted anymore. I had gotten to the point where I knew that was not it, but I didn't know what I wanted anymore. So there I was, 41 years old, in a lousy relationship, and was trying to talk myself. If you can imagine this, some of you may be able to relate to this, or if you can't, just imagine, if you want, trying to talk myself into settling for this relationship just to avoid rocking the boat. And if I'm being honest, which I am more and more these days, like, taking responsibility, like in this, that my decisions, my actions had led to those circumstances. Nobody did it to me. And so, to avoid rocking the boat, and in the back of my head, I was thinking, and to avoid another fucking failed relationship. I mean, seriously, right? Because, okay, I've had a marriage and 2 significant ones, and now here I am again in that pattern. So that is the type of thoughts that were going through my head. I don't know if you heard that on the audio, but there's a very loud motorcycle that just went by. So that's what that pause was from. So to avoid, failing again, I was 41, trying to talk myself into settling, not earning enough money to support myself on my own. And I was geographically removed from my family. And like I said, what I knew is that I was unhappy. I was not happy in those circumstances, and something had to change. that was definitely a place where I can say I had gotten to that low point, saying something has to change. But how? I had to do something different, but what to do differently and how to start, because I was unable to financially support myself. And so I couldn't just run off and and leave things behind and just get myself somewhere else because it wasn't financially possible. But knowing that something had to change was that spark, that planting of the seed, or setting an intention, if you will. But again, I did not know that terminology back then. But something has to change. I want things to change. I just don't know how. And so looking back, like I walked you through that exercise in the last episode, looking back at the crossroads in my life where I had to make decisions that truly scared me, that were uncomfortable, unpleasant, sad, whatever the case was, that truly scared me or that felt hard, that felt so hard, I should say, that I actually considered staying where I was because I just didn't want to do something that hard. Each time I was in that place, when I did take that hard step, when I did make the hard decision, on the other side of that, however long the time frame was, on the other side of that, I was always in a better place after taking that leap of faith. And so, as you can see, I'm saying the words, I was repeating this pattern. Why? Because I had not learned my lessons, the lessons that I needed to actually shift making that or repeating that pattern again. So here I was again, not wanting to do something hard, not wanting to rock the boat, and judging and criticizing and being very hard on myself for, again, finding myself in those types of circumstances. So I knew that I had been better off each time I'd done that. And like I said, with repeating the patterns, I admittedly, obviously fell back or slipped back into previous or habitual mindsets and habits, but each one brought me closer. And honestly, each one got me to a lower point, right? So that's not necessarily a great thing, but that again was my journey, my path based on the circumstances I did. And based on the circumstances I created by not making changes. So the universe was putting me in places where it got worse and worse. And I was like, oh my gosh, each time I'm here, it feels so much harder. And it was harder. But I had also built up this history of, but I know I can do it. It just freaking sucks. Right? So each crossroads taught me a necessary lesson, built up confidence, if you will, even though I don't know that it felt like confidence at the time. It just felt like repeating a pattern until I got to the point, like my perfect point, if you will, my perfect storm, where I made those changes and shifted, shifted the actions I took so that I did not repeat those patterns again. Now, I am not repeating those patterns, but I am and will continuously be on a place where I continue to learn from experiences, from challenges, to pivot. But now I'm doing it from a much healthier point of view, and I'm doing it in a more productive way. But all of those circumstances have led and contributed to getting me here. So I do want to point out to you guys that those challenges that you are experiencing, and if you're caught in a repetitive cycle of like the same circumstances or worsening circumstances, then that's because you haven't learned the lesson yet, just like I had not learned the lesson. So it's happening for a reason, for your better good, but it is ultimately up to us to realize it, to make the changes, to get the help, whatever the case is. Each case is definitely a unique situation. So have you asked yourselves questions Or maybe are you asking yourself questions along the lines of like how I started this episode? Are you settling for your current set of circumstances because you don't want to rock the boat, or because you don't want to, you think it's too hard, or you don't want to do something hard again that you've already done in the past? I'm here to tell you that yes, it will be hard. Yes, it is hard, but you are most definitely worth it. Not that it is worth it, not the hardness of you are worth learning the lessons and doing the hard things and going through these cycles until you get to a point where you know that it's time to make a change and you can't repeat that cycle again. And simply by saying that, by thinking that, but I want something different, I need help, I help me find a way, whatever that phrase is in your head or that you write out, that is the planting of the seed. That is the setting of an intention, even if it doesn't really feel like it. Knowing that something has to change and knowing that you're at a place where you are ready to not repeat the same patterns again. So that is that low point moment that this episode was about. In next week's episode, I will share the aha moment that led to those changes, that led to the shifts, and how it played out, which I could not have predicted or planned or thought out. I had to start taking actions. I had to actually start doing something differently for it all to play out like it has. And I will share that with you on next week's episode. So again, now that we're wrapping this episode up, if you would like this email series sent to you, it's automatic. You just opt in and you get one email a week, and you can save the emails or print them. You can bookmark the videos like the one that I referenced in this episode. The link to get that email series is somewhere around this video or audio, either in the show notes or captions, depending on where you're listening to and watching this. And also, if you think that this will benefit someone else, if you think someone else will enjoy this type of information or this series of episodes, I invite you to share it out and also give a review and get it out to those people that it will benefit and help and who may enjoy this type of content. And if this is bringing up ideas for topics or content that you would like for me to do an episode on or talk about on an episode, please send me an email and let me know what that topic is. The email to reach me is vision, VISION, at bluemoonmanifestations.com. All one word, of Blue Moon Manifestations. And I will reply and let you know that I got it, etc. But I do appreciate your feedback because then I also know the types of things that you are looking for very specifically. So I appreciate that ahead of time. And like I said, tune in next week if you're listening to this or watching it in real time. And if you're listening to or watching this in the future, you can just go right on to the next episode. It should be there for you. So bye, guys. Thanks for being here. I will talk to you soon.